I've been going through a lot of the news following the White House summit with Donald Trump, the social media summit. And it's all pretty insane, like seriously insane. They're saying it was a meeting of like far-right extremists and trolls, and it was a room full of 250 people, which included moderate conservatives, some individuals with left-wing views like myself, and many of these, like basically all of these stories call me right-wing. I started thinking about it. Like, what about me makes me right-wing? My criticism of the far left and the failures of the Democrats. So if anyone dare call out their side, they must be the other side. I don't necessarily care what you call me. You can call me Susan if it makes you happy. But it got me thinking about if someone like myself can't vote for someone who's pro-choice, pro-progressive tax, pro-public health care, pro-environmentalism, like because these people don't exist or because they're identitarian, and so I call this out, that makes me right-wing. Even though I've publicly supported Tulsi Gabbard and made, I kid you not, in the past couple weeks, especially following the debates, I made a ton of videos talking about why Tulsi Gabbard is great, and I made a video specifically dedicated to just that, why I like Tulsi Gabbard. But I'm right-wing. In fact, Vox called Tulsi Gabbard conservative on war. And it got me thinking, there's no left anymore. Now think about it. If you say you're right-wing, people will make an assumption about what you are. If you say you're left-wing, no one has any idea what the hell you're talking about. It's very simple, actually. People on the left so actually, let's do this. Let's go through these tweets, and let me try and bring these thoughts together. And I have a couple stories to show to explain why I think, the way I do. I say on Twitter, I think it's fair to say there is no left in the U.S. anymore. The views of progressives and Democrats are fractured and disparate. While you can point to leftist pockets that exist, their views are so different they may as well be different parties. Rampant Democrat infighting plagues the news. Anti-woke dirtbag left is currently being dragged by the woke left, and moderate leftists are now right-wing. People like me, I'm to the left of Obama. I don't think he did enough on the public healthcare debate, and he eventually just caved to massive corporations. So I've never been his biggest fan, especially with his foreign policy. I'm very anti-war. But now Barack Obama is more right-wing than I am. In fact, I'm probably to the left of Nancy Pelosi and frequently share her criticism of the far-left Democrats. In fact, I've made numerous videos defending her doing just that. But the media says Tim Pool is right-wing. Again, you can call me whatever the hell you want. I don't care. I'm going to hold my opinions and I'm going to do my things. And I don't care about your tribe and I don't care what you think. Interestingly, in the Vox was talking about the Andy Ngo incident where he was beaten by Antifa. And they actually frame it as left versus the center and the right in this framing. The left being pro-violence? No, seriously. Saying that it's wrong, that Antifa didn't do anything wrong, or that you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater, or that there was no concrete, or that it was a fringe hoax. And it's like the police put that out. So here I find myself, moderate leftist, right? Being called right-wing for calling out the fringe elements of the far left because as someone who would prefer a Democrat politician in terms of everything I outlined in the beginning, actually, I think we'll go through it again. I don't have anyone to vote for. I disagree with Tulsi Gabbard on a few issues, but for the most part, I think she's spot on. She recently put out a tweet talking about ending war, ending mass government surveillance, pro-free speech, anti-big tech monopolies, and I'm like, there we go. There we go. And she did an interview with Michael Tracy, journalist, where she said that identity politics is divisive. It's dividing us. And I'm like, well, here we are. Here we are, someone with principle who stepped down from the DNC. I can't vote. But she's conservative. I kid you not. They call her the alt-right Democrat. I don't care. Again, call me whatever you want. But the point is, if we are people who are looking for Democrats to vote for, if we are people who are looking at Tulsi saying, that's the person I would want to be president. And you look at both me and Tulsi and say conservative, they are excising us from the left and we are no longer a part of it. So here's what I've outlined. Rampant Democrat infighting plagues the news. Nancy Pelosi and AOC and the progressive Democrats do not agree on anything for the most part. AOC and her progressives may as well be a different political party. They won't vote in line with Democrats. They insult Democrats. Ocasio-Cortez insinuated that Nancy Pelosi was racist and then said that she knows she's sending us death threats by doing this. Ocasio-Cortez has voted closer to how Republicans vote when it comes to the track record simply, but not for the same reasons. When it came to voting in favor of funding the government, Ocasio-Cortez voted no when the Democrats voted yes. She voted no because she wants to get rid of ICE. She's called CBP a rogue agency and has even now entertained getting rid of the DHS entirely. This is completely at odds with the Democratic Party. Now, of course, there's a ton of people flooding my mentions saying the Democrats were never the left. But there's actually a really, really great tweet that I'm going to jump to real quick. Christopher Forstner, excellent tweet, by the way, said, "The exposure of the American left to the European left on social media has completely thrown them into disarray. I think that's the root cause of all of this. I'm not sure what, if anything, will fix the divide now." And so I have some things, we'll move on and we'll show some more. It's a really good point. They're saying the Democrats were never left. Yeah, from a European standard, but seriously. There was a left-wing party and a right-wing party, and they grabbed together the majority of their two sides. The Republicans weren't, the Republicans would take everyone from the right, the Democrats would take everyone from the left, and they were both rather moderate. And we have the graphs to show this. Today, actually, so let's move on. We'll jump to this graph right now to exemplify my point. Take a look at this graph. I've shown this many times. The right wing is coalescing while the left is dispersing. So the point is, the right still takes in everyone from the right, and there is a centralized ideology, a centralized narrative. I am not there. Look at this graph. I'd probably fall right here to the center left, but look how there's no one there anymore. So when the bulk of the people are now left, now closer to the far left, they look to me on the center left and say right wing. And the same with Tulsi Gabbard, even though she supports increasing the minimum wage, and I believe she's for reparations, and a lot of her supporters were upset about that. But they view everyone like past this line as a conservative, and the conservatives are doing everything in their power to recruit this and expand their base. And I think it's going to work, especially when the left is in a rush, it seems, to excise people like me from what you would consider to be left-wing politics. If you're going to get rid of the people who would agree with you on abortion, on taxes, on the environment, what are you left with? Because I'll tell you this. For me, I looked at Tulsi Gabbard, but I assure you there are going to be a lot of people who will never, they will not support identitarian politics. I mean, that's true for me too. They're not going to get in line behind Warren. They're not going to get in line behind people who are banning the Pledge of Allegiance at committee meetings, people who are standing on the debate stage, raising their hands saying, give government health care to illegal immigrants. We can barely afford government health care for everybody as it is, and Social Security is in a crisis, and they're talking about giving away U.S. resources to other people. That's not a right-wing position. But check this out. The conservative base, right here in the center of the right, is always going to support their conservative positions. That's where most conservatives are. The people who would once have supported a Democrat, who are now being excised, I will never be pro-life. It's just not, it's not like, look, I have strong moral and ethical and philosophical views on why I choose the things I do. I'd absolutely love to discuss them, but it puts me at odds with conservatives. Who do I vote for? Well, I'm politically homeless like many other people who used to be moderate leftists, center left. But I assure you, many of these people who have been excised from the left will vote for Trump in spite. Even though they might disagree with policy, there's a difference between the fractured and disparate failing left and a centralized pro-America conservative base. The point I was making before about there not being a left is it's easily exemplified in this. When you look to the conservative side, you see this big wave right in the middle, this bell curve showing most conservatives agree. You can point to someone and say, that's what a conservative believes. Look at the left. Can you tell me what the left believes? Honestly, you can't. The Chapo Trap House, one of the biggest podcasts in I don't know about the world, but on Patreon. They are anti-woke, they claim. They are dirtbags. They believe in socialism, but not wokeness. Okay, so if I point to someone on the left, are they going to be woke or anti-woke? No idea. Chapo's huge. But on Twitter, everybody's woke. What about the Democrats like Pelosi? Is Pelosi right-wing? She's certainly not woke, although they're now starting to embrace a lot of this stuff. The point is, you look to Republicans, and you'll find differing opinions here and there, but for the most part, we can see people have rallied behind Trump, even though he kind of changed things and changed the party. People eventually got in line, and now they're mostly in agreement, and they're voting in line with each other. On the left, they're not. The Democrats are fighting like crazy. They're insulting each other. They're slamming each other. Pelosi responds to AOC slam, saying caucus has her back for condemning Chief of Staff's offensive tweet. This is just part of the ongoing spat with the New York lawmaker, they say. They've been fighting endlessly. Look at this. They call her, they say Segrist Democrats. Segrist. Centrist. It says, asked about her ongoing spat with the New York lawmaker, Pelosi acknowledged how she recently addressed, at the request of my members, an offensive tweet that came out of one of the members' offices that compared centrist Democrats to segregationists. That tweet was authored and then deleted by Saikat Chakrabarti. The point is, more and more examples of Ocasio-Cortez's views being completely different from the rest of the Democrats. The Democrats don't have a unifying message anymore, and it seems like everything is just broken on the left. I'll tell you this. I'd love for there to be a unified left, unified opposition to Trump. But here's the thing. Let's go back to this point earlier. Back in the day, look at the 80s, with the overlap between liberal and conservative, Democrat and Republican. Even into the 2000s, there was an opportunity. Today, it makes no sense anymore. The left has been falling apart and just fracturing. I don't know why, but I think it's really important to point out that the exposure to the European left, it's a really great point. Conservatives hold their views. But when all of these Europeans flood Twitter and Facebook with very left-wing political positions relative to Europe, American leftists just got in line and started parodying that because they're collectivists. And now they've fractured themselves. So here's what I said. For someone who is pro-choice, pro-progressive tax, pro-social programs, but agrees with Obama on border security, who do you vote for? You are not the left anymore unless you embrace leftist identitarianism. Even the anti-war left has been smeared by the Southern Poverty Law Center, and Glenn Greenwald is routinely insulted as alt-right. Even Bill Maher is called alt-right. There is no left. If Glenn Greenwald is being smeared and attacked by the Twitterati left, if Bill Maher is called alt-right, if Obama's policies are now right-wing, I'm going to say there's no left. It's not there. Because Bill Maher is high-profile, he's famous. Glenn Greenwald, high-profile, famous. Yet they're not both the left. They disagree completely on where they're at. Look, there are people on the right who have crazy views. There are fringe right-wing extremists. There are moderates who don't agree with the conservative base. But the conservatives don't entertain them. And when it comes to major conservative personalities, Ben Shapiro, Steven Crowder, Tucker Carlson, you can be sure they will mostly agree. But take Bill Maher, Rachel Maddow, and Glenn Greenwald, Don Lemon, Anderson Cooper. Let's remove Anderson Cooper, but Don Lemon. What do they agree on? Are they the left? They're completely different from each other. Add Chapo to the mix. Add some high-profile left-wing personalities like the Young Turks. The Young Turks, high-profile leftists, you compare them to Bill Maher, and they're just completely different. There's no left. There are pockets of different leftist ideology, but they are fractured. I don't see them winning. I said, if you agreed with Obama or were even to his left by a fair degree, there is no longer a tribe for you. Even Vox described the Andy Ngo incident as left versus center/right. So what is that, the pro-violence versus everybody else? So if you oppose Antifa and say they're violent, you are not left anymore. You have to get behind their extremism. It's insane. All of these hit pieces that came out called me a right-wing commentator. They didn't insult me. They didn't denigrate me, disparage me. They said Tim Pool is a right-wing commentator. Whatever. Call me whatever you want. I'm not. My politics are literally left of center. I'm in favor of social liberalism, social programs, and reform. But call me whatever you want. You're in a bubble, and the left is falling apart. I end by saying, if you are the rare center leftists, you have almost nothing in common with the entirety of the left. It's been so spread out that even the Democrats right now seem to be two different parties. And there we are. So I'm going to do a bigger update later talking about the media and the social media summit. That'll be for 4 p.m. on the main channel. For those on the podcast, it came first. But you know what? Tell me I'm wrong. Say what you want. But we can look at what they're doing, and they're trying to, manipulate moderate Democrats into embracing socialism. That's what we're seeing out the Green New Deal. I'll do a video on this next, a segment on this story next. For those that on the podcast, it says AOC's chief of staff admits Green New Deal about implementing socialism. I'll give a little pushback on that, but it is an important point to be made because that's been one of my positions. So you can be a social liberal and think overt socialism is bad. You can agree with a mixed economy leaning towards socialism and still think socialism is bad. I think a mixed economy is the way to go. That puts me center-left. Yet they'll call me right-wing. Some people think it's a conspiracy. They want me to be the right wing so that everyone else looks crazy. And that's what they've done with the press. In reality, I think they're going to end themselves. Will Chamberlain, they call him, Jeff Gessa on Twitter, a conservative, called him as extreme as vanilla yogurt. Because Will is just kind of like, and I mean this with all due respect, a boring conservative. I don't mean he's boring. Like, I'm not calling him boring. I mean just like when you hear his opinions, you're like, oh, yep, that's like a moderate conservative guy with he's got great insight on legal matters. I consider him a friend, but he's just kind of like a regular guy. He's not got any radical views. He doesn't want radical change. He's kind of just like an American guy who leans right. They called me and him extremists. What do you think regular people will think when they watch my content or his? They're like, what, that vanilla yogurt guy? He's not an extremist. You're nuts. This is, in my opinion, the left lighting itself on fire. The smears won't work the way they think they will. But I'll leave it there. Thanks for hanging out. Stick around. Next segment will be coming up at 1 p.m., and I will see you all there.